Hope Channel, changing lives.
Over the weekend, a whole lot went on, but so far we tapped into two main occasions, and the first one was, that's what we all know, the Pathfinders. It was the Pathfinders Day. That was on the 17th of September 2022, and it was across the world. And we say a big shout out to all our Pathfinders, because they are really also doing their part in spreading the word of God, saving souls, their little way. Saw all the drills, the fun parts, the fact that it was their day. So the sermon, everything was about the Pathfinders. So we say, keep pushing on, keep being a builder for Christ, keep being, the lead cause when it comes to the children. We know that God will lead you to win more souls through what you're doing for Christ. And the second one is the amazing part, that is the Manifest, launching their 20th anniversary right here in the studios of Hope Channel Ghana. Those groups are just marvelously awesome. They are good. So, on this note, on their behalf, I'm telling you that this coming month, that is October 22nd, 2022, at the National Theatre is when the grand celebration is going to be. So please be there on that day. Let's go for this quick break. We'll be back. There's more.
Fool. trust in Jesus the more. Through it all, through it all, through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus the more. Many trials and sorrows, temptations and troubles, He's been my refuge, my Savior, my friend. His promises are very sure. He is a God who never fails. I've learned to trust in Jesus the more. Many trials and sorrows, temptations and troubles, He's been my refuge, my Savior, my friend. His promises are very sure. He's, oh yes, my God who never fails. I've learned to trust in Jesus the
Through it all, we have to learn to trust in the Lord. Today, you've probably chanced upon the topic we are going to discuss. Yes, Rhythms of Life is all about everything pertaining to life. We are doing the evolution of music when it comes to Adventism. Yes, that's what we're discussing today. And I have three wonderful panelists who are joining me with discussion. And I want you to equally share your thoughts about music when it comes to Adventism or as Adventists in the church. You can join us by dropping your comments on either Facebook or YouTube. That's a social media handle, Hope Channel Ghana. And then we read it out for you. On WhatsApp too is 0559 680066. 0559 680066 and read it out for you. So I'll begin from my far left. Actually, I know that my, topmost panelist will understand. Yes, he will. So I'm beginning with our brother Eddie from the Blessed Kura. Eddie, how are you doing?
I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm doing well by God's grace.
Great.
And I welcome you to
Thank
the
you.
show.
Thank you.
Loretta, you've been smiling through. I guess most of you know Loretta from One Voice. Loretta, welcome. And I hope you're doing well.
Yes, I am.
Okay, we thank God. So, one of our own actually is a pastor. And then he's been in the music industry when it comes to Adventists for quite a long time. Before I introduce him, just a little about him, and then I will show him. So it is he's been the former director, stewardship and strategic planning, Ghana Union Conference. He's been a lecturer at Valley View University, Accra, founder and president, Abbey Foundation, Ghana. And then he's married to our beautiful shepherdess, Hannah Vera Abbey. Oh. Actually, the issue is that she is late, but then we still remember her. And then he's won 8 awards, mostly on development of Adventist music here in Ghana. And he is an author of books. And his latest book is Improving Your Personal Prayer Life. Who am I talking about? Pastor Dr. Emmanuel Udenke Abbey. Pastor.
Hello.
How you, I love that. I love that you smile. How you doing?
Well, fine by God's grace. He's always with us.
Of course he is.
And he has been in control.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, thank God. And I welcome you to my viewer once again to Rhythms of Life. We'll dive straight into our conversation today. So we are beginning with the history of music when it comes to Adventists. So I would begin with our very own, of course, you know, Pastor.
Hello.
The history, this is the origin of music when it comes to Adventist Church. Can you give us a brief history about it?
Well, you know, when it comes to music, we cannot talk about Adventist music without talking about a general Christian involvement. And, you know, the one T.E. Tando, who is into music and was a student at University of Ghana, wrote, he made a search. And according to him, the first time Ghana was introduced to music was when the Portuguese landed on our shores with the religion Christianity. That was in the 1400s. And also coming along with the hymn book, which contains the hymns that was existing at that time. But you see, we in Ghana, as churches, were introduced to this by these foreigners, because before they came, Christianity was nowhere here. So they came with all that. And so we started going into choral music. At first was musical, instrumental, and then the choral thing came. But when it comes to Adventists, the Methodists went ahead of us. It was in 1922, according to the records, 22, that we came in contact with the Methodist singing band. Adventists came in contact with them. We're talking about choral singing, and that was the Agona SDA singing band that came in contact with the Methodist Church, and we were learning their songs, and then soon it began spreading to other Adventist sources. So Agona SDA singing band, Nashanti, around 1922, was introduced to choral singing by their contact with the Methodist singing band.
We'll come back to the fact, you see, 1922, moving to the 60s and then 70s. I think we're going to talk much about that. I'll move to Eddie. Eddie. So, Pastor is mentioning, you know, singing band, but choral.
Yeah.
You know, choral, song, choral. Is choral a genre, like a musical genre?
Yes, personally to me, I would say it's a genre. And then just like we have others like hip life, hip hop, or whatever we know, choral music is also a genre because it follows a particular trend, a particular feeling. It has its own way it is done, you see. So because it has a special way, just like other genres have their own special way, you cannot categorize it under any other genre than letting it stand alone on its own. Yes, sure.
So Loretta, so it's like the way and manner it is. So what manner is it?
Okay, so I'll say that choral music is basically a group of people singing together. So there are different parts to it. You have the soprano, you have the alto, you have the tenor, you have the bass. So all these parts together form a choir. So for me, that's choral music.
So you can have just one person saying that I'm doing a choral music.
You can perform choral pieces as a soloist, but the songs are usually composed for the voices of all these parts that I'm talking about. But you can also choose to perform it with an accompaniment or just go a cappella with it.
So I'll come back to the fact that, you know, people have their own perception when it comes to choral. You need to be in some places before you can actually be in a choral group as a whole. Think about it. Think about it. So that I come to Pastor. Pastor, so the 60s, it's said that the 60s and the 70s was when actually, when it comes to Adventist church, the singing band actually had its roots really firmed in the church.
Yeah, actually, when it comes to choral singing, like she has said, is a singing, a song or songs that have been prepared or composed by writers for voice singing, for people to sing, not instrumental. That's what we call choral singing. So the singing bands were actually doing it. You know, earlier, it was this Abibinyom, which was being done. It was a mono phony, that is a single voice.
Can you mention some of this Abibinyom?
Oh, that okay. Just for us to know the Dockers.
Yes. Okay, so the
people,
Dockers,
what
like,
they used to sing. It's very, very popular in the Methodist church. So all those things were imbibed or taken up by a singing band at Agona. And then when it began to filter, singing bands became the things of the day, from the 20s, 30s, 40s. But it was during the 1950s that choir music entered the Adventist church. And it did happen so because the union office was having missionaries, and some of their wives are musicians while the men worked for the church. And Hansen Road Church, which was Accra SD Church, was the only church in Accra, and therefore they were worshiping there, and they decided to help the group. But in about 1958, one of them, Pastor Coleridge Dunbar Henry, who was a union evangelist, conducted evangelistic campaign at Bedempoe Memorial Hall. And at that time, the choir was prepared to sing. And the first choir that was prepared to sing was introduced by Pastor A.N. Daite, late Pastor A.N. Daite. He was the one who introduced the first choir in Accra. And they were singing at a crusade. But then along with it came these small groups. So that was the first evidence of choir singing in Seventh-day Adventist Church.
But what's the difference between the singing band and then the choir?
Oh, interestingly, I've been in both.
You've been in both?
Yes.
So what's the difference? Can you give us?
The difference is very sharp. Singing band music is evangelistic in nature. You were talking about genre. You know, so people who compose the songs, you know, these singing bands are going out there to present the gospel message through their singing. And so it's evangelistic.
Not to catch you actually, Pastor, meaning that the singing band actually, was it formed merely for evangelism, like they learn the songs and then they go out?
No, I think you know, singing band is associated with marching as they sing. Okay, they don't do that slow marching as it is in the church. Brisk one with the frichiwa, which is the coated with the stick, and then sometimes with the baracas, and they will be marching along the street to prepare the areas where they enter for evangelism and for camp meeting. You know, so they go to the community. So their songs are evangelistic. Some of them are Pam Shano, no way. And so you'll be telling the people Noah should build the ark for what? Salvation. Because evangelism is on. All right. The choir music is merely to settle those who have been brought into the church in church worship. That was the original thing. And so choir was associated with the worship divine service. While singing bands were singing during the Sabbath school time or in between Sabbath school and divine service in order to bring out the evangelism that is in them to the congregation.
An interesting one. Eddie, you're smiling there. You didn't know.
I'm glad.
You're glad there.
I'm just glad.
You're glad you're taking notes. Like
yeah, very, 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 very.
Anyways,
important.
so I asked the previous question that it is said or it is noted that you need to be in the choir or the singing band before you join the choral, group. How true is that, Eddie?
Okay, I think it's not deliberate, but it's deliberate.
It's not deliberate, but it's deliberate.
The reason is that somebody can be in a choral group. No, let's settle on this. The church choir is also a choral group, that's how I put it.
Yeah.
But the ones we have, like my sister's One Voice, like my Blessed Family Chorale, are private groups out there that anybody from all other churches within a particular area where you feel that proximity-wise you can get there, can join. Sometimes we even have those that are not a particular denomination. But then the reason why we say the person should be in a singing band or a church choir is not to collapse our singing bands and church choirs. For about 6 years coming, you would realize that most of the church choirs and singing bands, especially the youth choirs, are losing membership because of the serious activities of the choral groups now. And it is really affecting the church's music locally. So we realize as directors that the church will fall back as us as major contributors to these things. So what are we going to do? Then we need to have a strict measure. When we are auditioning people for our choirs, we need to put it in there that you should be in either a youth choir, an active member for that matter, an active member of your youth choir, an active member of your singing band, an active member of your church choir. So that after all what you've learned with us, you fall back. Because we are doing professional, in quotes, professional music. Like my sister here cannot sing the same way the mother will be singing in the church.
Obviously.
So when she goes back, what she has learned from One Voice, she needs to practice it in the church choir and the singing band. But initially, when these youth choral groups started, we were not doing that. Oh, if you are ready to join, come and join. At the end of the day, they will come. All their focus will be on choral group, whatever happens in the church choir, that pastor and then Uncle K.O. have started for a very long time. No? We are just using some 6 years, 4 years to collapse everything. And that is where we worried. And then we decided to put that barrier that if you're not part of the singing band, the church choir, an active member, we will also not recruit you. So that at least we'll have members who will be falling back to their churches for duty. Yeah.
Loretta, you've been singing from childhood. Did you really? It is true.
From childhood?
Yeah, because that's what I heard.
Maybe you were not aware.
All right. So Eddie has made a point as to the fact that at some point in time they realized that the singing band and the choir were losing membership. You growing up, in singing, did you also experience that?
I would say yes. But there are some challenges to this effect, because sometimes as youth, maybe you're done with school, your national service, you're working, and the days for rehearsal with the church choir or singing band or youth choir, the times that you're supposed to meet clashes with your job. So then if you're part of a choral group, a private choral group, that would meet on weekends, and the time will be maybe after church or on Sundays. And since you love singing, you would end up, being at your rehearsal with the private choral group because you are not able to make it to the church rehearsal because of the time and sometimes the distance from your workplace that you have to commute to church. These are some of the challenges that you would face. But so I experienced this growing up. I experienced it a lot. It affected me personally. I experienced it because my job was clashing with the time that I was supposed to attend church choir rehearsals. And eventually I had to just be in love with One Voice choir.
Well, I don't know why you said that in low key, but we'll come back to that.
Maybe so that the church elder will not hear.
Anyway, I think you'll hear, definitely. So, Pastor, singing band and choir, how has it really contributed ever since it's joined the church, as in it being part of the church from those times, the 50s, the 40s, as you said, and then the 70s?
Greatly. Greatly. Worship cannot be effective without music or singing. Somebody may say, the hymns are there for singing. But choirs and these choral groups also sing hymns. Okay? But the congregation cannot sing the sort of songs that, like anthems and things like that, that are composed to be sung by these choral groups. And so that adds a perspective to the beauty of worship and singing. And some of the things that are in the words, in the songs that are sung, when they are even sung before the worship, can even end the service. We can even close the service and go home without hearing a voice. Some of the voices that follow the singing sometimes water down the crescendo, the height that the music brought. But we pray that it shouldn't be so.
Yeah.
Okay. And so singing has played a major role. Remember, Job tells us that when the worlds were created, the morning stars sang for joy. The angels sang. It was part of worship to cement and to ratify the creation of God. And so in worshiping God, music is important. But we are talking about singing band and choir. The singing band, I've told you, we're bringing people into the church, and they sang to ginger the members about evangelism awareness. And most of their songs were like that. The choir, they march in at that time in the 50s, with the officiating, and they sing just before the sermon. But we found it somewhere along the line that singing band was also doing well with their singing. In fact, they were singing as the indigenous songs that choirs were not singing. Choirs were singing these songs that were imported, English anthems with high language of English, and the congregation, part of them may not even understand. But with a singing band, they are able to sing the indigenous songs like the women, the local society, and it meets the needs of everybody in the church. Okay, so all of them have played active and important roles, but there was somewhere along the line when there was a conflict that arose between
I was waiting for you to
singing bands.
I was waiting for you to and bring that up.
And to make it short, that was, like I said, the choirs knew what they were singing. The singing bands knew what they were singing. Singing bands were not robed. They wore uniforms that they have sewn by themselves in support of worship. But a time came when the music leaders who were teaching the songs, they were the ones who brought in the confusion. I can put my foot down because I know it. It is coming from the education that most of them received at Winneba, the music school. There were a lot of people who went for the music school and came out, and they could not all be teaching choirs. And some of the things they learned there were also how to handle indigenous singing. And so they were also handling singing band. And so if you have been to Winneba School of Music, I have also been to the same place, and I'm handling singing band. And you are teaching those English songs, high-class anthems. Why can't I also teach the singing band the same? And the choir people were also making a mistake. They were saying singing bands don't sing notes. In the 50s, that was the language.
In the 50s?
Yes.
Okay.
They were saying singing bands don't sing notes. they sing
Anyhow.
anything.
My goodness.
But that is not true.
They go with the flow.
There is no sound
sound.
that cannot be written into music.
Sure.
Okay, so singing bands were singing notes, but the choir were telling they were not. So the leaders of the singing bands started teaching them notes, and they were singing notes, just like the choir. That brought about the competition. Okay, and so you sing an anthem, the next time choir singing band also sing an anthem, and they were singing equally, and it changed also the singing band. This also changed the membership of the singing band. Most of the youth
Entered.
who were not ready for the choir
Yes.
entered the singing band. The elderly ones who could not be in the choir because of their English were still there. and then it became a source of competition, and later on what really made it worse was the introduction of choir robes
Yeah, singing
or
band.
robes by singing band to also be robed like the choir. And it started somewhere. If it didn't start in Amakum Church, it started at Hansen Road. Okay. But then it became a bone of contention. Should singing bands be robed? The choir said, no, you don't have to robe. You must put on your traditional dress. We said, no, we can sing like you and better. And therefore, we'll also be robed. So that was a contention that was introduced by the leaders.
I even heard that one of it was the fact that the singing one was full of old folks, and the choir, the youth. You know, the youth prefer the choir because of the agrophosim, and then the old folks. All right, so Loretta, well, the singing band, yes, was as Pastor said, the maracas and then the sticks and the kuku, whatever. And then the choir was with the organ. But when you come to this private choral group you find yourself in, there are kind of other instruments and other things. Don't you think those things can also be brought into the singing band and then the choir as well?
I think that it all boils down to what our church would accept. Because we have a style of worship. So if you can't play drums in church, but with a private choral group in performing high lifes, you can include the drums. It adds to the rhythm of the music. It gives it some kind of effect, which we obviously enjoy, you know. So I think it just boils down to what the church would accept. Does it incline with our style of worship? If it doesn't, then I don't think there'll be a need for us to inculcate it. Rather, we should focus on developing our singers in church, our voice quality, our tone, our diction, because sometimes the old folks wouldn't allow you, a young person, to come and correct me. Like, I was born before you. Are you coming to teach me how to sing? You know? And generally, it affects our output or how the church choir would sound or the singing band would sound. I've had a lot of experiences from friends, you know, in our local choirs where maybe you are seated by an elderly person and maybe what the person is singing is not going well, but
Off key.
you're like, you can't correct the person, because sometimes if you correct, then hey, you don't respect, you know. So it's not necessarily about inculcating the drums and other instruments, you know, like the trumpet, the saxophone and all that. But you know, the keyboard that we use, it has some instruments embedded in it, so you don't necessarily have to also physically bring those instruments into the church. The keyboard has it all.
Has it all? Eddie,
Yeah,
you second that?
Yes, I believe that all instruments are accompaniment. And in accompaniments, the instrument has to be down. It's so sound.
It's so sound.
So the accompaniment is actually accompanying the voice. So I believe that instruments, and anyway, the church is so reserved on instruments and its issues. I remember last year I brought Blessed Family here for a live concert, and then we used bass guitar, trumpets, trombone, and then two keyboards.
I didn't get that. Sorry, please can you repeat?
Last year, Blessed Family was in the same studio,
Okay.
and then we had bass guitar in here, we had trumpets, trombone, and two keyboards. So the feeling was very nice. And then Pastor Nimako was in here, and then he asked me, so why can't we have all these things in our setting? You know, the playing is also another thing. Some instrumentalists, even with the keyboard alone, when you are coming from your junction, you hear that Prince Emmanuel is worshiping. Just the keyboard, the whole noise, and you wouldn't hear the voice. I think this is where our leaders are having the challenge, where the choir would sing and the voice is very down, then the instrument is so up that you can't even hear anything, because we are listening to the lyrics or the words in the song. That is what we need now. We don't need the instrument. After all, my mother wouldn't need your skill on the keyboard for anything, but she will need the jatabrua. You understand? She will need or quadruforte, the words in the song. So I am of the belief that if we, the players, decide to handle the instrument skillfully and as professionals, it will be accepted. There are some churches I have been to, I've seen sax players there playing the sax with the keyboard, but very toned down. I've seen trumpeters in other churches playing very down. Advent heralds, for instance, they use the guitars, but you still hear whatever they are singing, and it makes the music very beautiful. You know, culture at play when it comes to music, you can't downplay it. Culture plays vital role, and you can imagine sometimes maybe a typical Ga community, and then we are having an evangelism there, and the singing man is using a kolomashi to sing to them. It's very beautiful. They feel that this is us. Yeah. Adventists, they are part of us. But where we go and play the instrument, and they don't hear anything we are singing. That is why the church is so reserved when it comes to instrument issues. So I believe if it is skillfully handled, why not? It will make sense to them.
Pastor, what's your take on that?
You see, the church has tried before. They have tried using these instruments. First of all, let me say what they are saying is true. Instruments that are used by these choral groups, which are not the official church and singing bands, can be applied to the singing bands and choirs. But because singing band and choirs are church-based, okay, these groups, they can meet anywhere and practice. Sure. They can come into the church, they can go elsewhere. Singing band, it has to be in the church. Yeah. And the choir has to be there. And so they are church-based. And therefore, to be able to fulfill that, these instruments will have to be in the church, where they practice. But the church is very, very sensitive about that, because there are times when the church has allowed instruments to be used. I remember there's a group in Laboni who were using drums. The jazz drums, Kuli. But I don't know why it has stopped. There was a time when in Amakum they were using dono. Yes, that was when we came new into the ministry. We were young people. And they were using the dono to support, and later on it was stopped. The reasons why these things are not happening allowed in the church is because somebody playing the drums overhypes it. He beats it beyond recognition to drown the voices. And it also brings in sentiments. You know, we have holy dance. Sure. But when the
holy
drums,
dance.
we dance in the church at worship. During harvest, during worship, and all those things. But it doesn't normally happen in the worship period divine service. But when people are doing thanksgiving and people are giving testimonies, we have what we call holy dance. You dance in the church with holiness to praise God. And if the drums are there, those drums can heighten the emotions for people to forget they are even in the church house. It has been tried before, and so the church allows it, and then they say no. They allow it, and they say no. Let's be realistic. If you go to the Evers, they cannot do without drums. In the Everland, from the coast to the hinterland, they have music, and they are singing traditionally, and even the Gospels. They have this bobo, which is a traditional something, but they import it into the church and sing gospel songs with it, and they are done with drums. So if the drums are not there, and look at the local traditional members singing, and it's only the piano or organ, it doesn't bring in the tradition out. Okay, but if the drums are there, fine. But the issue is what he brought out. People are unable to control how the drums can be used. And they allow it, and then before you know it goes out of hand, and then they stop it. And so for a long time we haven't allowed that in the church. But it has come through the keyboards. The keyboards that they use have drums, and they are played in the church, and nobody says anything. So indirectly, we are not saying drums are bad, but the way they are not controlled is the reason why we don't have them physically in the church. But with the keyboard, if the keyboard can control it, fine. We don't have any problem.
So a quick one, and I'll go back to Pastor again. So you see, our promo says that you are viewer, you're part of Rhythms of Life. I'm throwing a question at you. What is one of the Binyum you really, really loved? Just drop it, a comment session. At least, if you can give 5, I have a gift for you. 5 of a Binyum. 5 of a Binyum. Pastor, you realize that with time, Adventists, our music has, this revolved along the way. Things have changed. But it looks like we still don't have enough composers to compose a lot of songs for us. Because till now, even though we have the organ now, it's not only about the kung and then the other things. We have the organs and then other instruments. But it looks like we still don't have enough composers. We are still tapping into the old songs. Aside the choral groups, we're tapping into our old songs. What do you think is the problem?
Well, we have composers. We have composers. We have Kwaku Sam, who is now in Canada. We have Ose Boatin, who used to be in the USA now. I think he's in Kumasi. We've got a lot of composers.
Where are they?
In the church. They are there. They are there. They are still composing songs. Yes, but you see the problem is, and I would like to plead that when we feature songs, like one voice sing a composition by an Adventist, let's see the name on the screen, so that they know that this has been composed by this person. Otherwise, it sounds as if the song they are singing is coming from another church. At least let's give acknowledgement to the composers. We acknowledge those who sing it. They sing beautifully. And sometimes we say amen. Where the song is coming from, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
And so I'm saying this appeal to Hope Channel. They should try to overcome this and make sure the songs that are sung, we have the names there. Sometimes we do hymn singing, and the missionaries have their names, or the composers from Europe have their names underneath. But the local ones, it's not showing. That's why you feel we don't have the local composer. We have them plenty. I have been composing too, by God's grace.
Oh yes.
Since I've been in retirement, there are a lot of songs that are coming up. In fact, every week, it looks as if every week a new song comes up. In the past 4 weeks, I think I can say I've come up with about 6 songs.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
All right, it just happened. Some through a dream, and some my children and my family people. You just see me behind the computer, and
The next
the
thing-
music is coming.
It's coming.
The problem is if you compose and give it to our local groups to learn and sing, and it is a difficult piece,
They won't.
they will not learn it. The choirs, singing bands, they will ignore it and go for the high life tunes which are simple to sing and dance around. But there are some classical song anthems which are difficult. I handle a choir in my church, foster home. And before the choir anniversary, or that is a dedication of the choir, we went through some of my songs which people say are difficult. And they learned and sang it. The district came and they were shaking their heads, saying, hey, these songs are here, but they wouldn't want to learn it. Okay, so the point is, please, choir leaders, kindly accept songs that are written by our Adventist composers, and let's sing them over and over again. Don't let's concentrate on high life alone. There are anthems,
Yeah.
and there
Hymns
are
and others.
other songs that can be learned. And English, let's learn English, mix them up. You know, I've been gifted to write songs in various languages, including the local traditional, the anthems, the English, hymns, gospel songs, and all kinds of, that's the way I am. And I pray that the Lord will, One Voice will have to, they have a pack of my songs to learn.
Oh, it looks like Pastor is really
Interesting.
one voice so much.
They have it.
They have it. All right,
They
so
tell me they will go to it soon.
Larissa, you're part of One Voice Management.
Yes.
Some of your songs is a choral group, which is drawn from the singing band and then the choir. Your music, you mentioned composers. Do you?
Yeah, they do.
Yes, we do. Actually, if you go onto our YouTube channel, the songs that we upload, we acknowledge our composers as well. And to add to what he said, we have some young, let me say young and upcoming composers who are Adventists as well. We perform songs by Stephen Ntiamwa, who is also an Adventist. We perform songs by Amos Jotete, he's an Adventist. So yeah, there are quite a number of Adventist composers out there, and their pieces are just awesome, I would say.
Eddie.
Yeah. So when you said we don't have composers, I just smiled because maybe
because
you are
as
not a
Pastor
director,
said,
so you don't come across the
As Pastor
scores.
said,
Like when
you're
you
not
go to
recognized.
Kumasi, for instance, there's a breed of young composers coming. I'm even afraid who will be singing whose song. Yes, because of late everybody, I do a little. Sometimes I feel like doing some two things. I'm just like my brother Derek. We just do some few ones and our choirs will sing. But there are great composers, Isiama, Macmillan, Maus and the rest. They are all coming up and then, and they are doing well. You see, one thing about us as Adventists, as directors, I have observed it because I saw it from, is he even a Methodist? He took one of our normal gospel singers, is it young missionaries, their song, and Alberto Dusa did it a choral for Celestial Evangel Choir to sing. You see, Mac Nimirenchi may not write the songs in SATB, but we as directors can put the songs in SATB for our choirs to perform in a way that will look very nice. I still think that we can go a long way. All these songs are there. The Aquarium 4, Ghana Aquarium 4 Jum. Even if the tunes that we feel are some way to us, the lyrics are very important. We can have what we call additional tune. That is what one pastor in Germany, Pastor Kingsley Usumensa, he's an Adventist pastor and a composer. He's good at it. He'll go and pick those tunes, add something little, and then it will suit our time. Then the choir will perform it. I still believe that with that, we'll be promoting, because if I pick Pastor Abe's song and I inform him that I'm doing an additional tune of this hymn, Pastor, he gives me the go-ahead. the authorship, the original piece is from him. So we all know that the lyrics is a borrowed lyrics from Pastor Abbey. Because what I fear is that most of the songs that we are borrowing into the system, belief-wise, the faith that we have, the content, we will be borrowing, and the time is coming, we will borrow some church hymn and we'll be singing because we feel it's nice, the tune is nice.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the message that we are carrying to our church members may not be what they need. So I am of the belief that we are discussing Adventist music. Our composers, our young ones coming, should also be looking at some of these things. I am really particular about the old Adventist hymn that it looks like we are throwing away. Because when you take the new one, it has the ones that the Methodists, the Baptists, from the 1 to 6 something, has the one that the Methodists and the Baptists.
Eddie is talking there. He has a lot to say. Don't worry, Eddie. Our producer said our time is up.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, we're still going to have series of this conversation. We are not ending here. You see, Eddie has a lot to talk about. Pastors, because we've not even gone down, talk a lot about choral music, even talk about our quartets and then other singing groups. So we're going to have series of this Adventist music or music when it comes to Adventism. I'm sorry I couldn't read most of your messages, but I'll just quickly mention your name. Charles, thank you. John Emmanuel, Akwisia Jenim Boatin, A.B. Amwa, Josephine, Ajiman, Veronica. Thank you so much. Probably next week, God willing, I will just, even though it's not about music, we'll still read out these messages for you. So please, don't miss any of our episode because you might not know what you've been missing. My name is Nana Akusia Boache, and I'm happy that Pastor, joined us, Odenke Abbey. And then to you, Loretta, God bless you. Eddie, God bless you. We're going to see them again, so don't worry. We're going to see them again. There's more to love, learn from them, and unlearn as well as Adventists and even non-Adventists. My name is Nana Akusia Boache. So, until we meet again next week, please stay safe, stay focused, and be blessed. And a quick one, a reminder on behalf of the manifest that 22nd of October 2022 at the National Theatre, go watch them. And then my question, please, concerning the Bibinyum 5. Next week, I'll mention the winner and then the gift will also be sent to the winner as well. My name is Nana Akusia Boache, and this was Rhythms of Life, Hope Channel Ghana. Stay blessed, and let's enjoy this rendition.
Sonhar, me
The Seventh-day Adventist Church Ghana presents The Coming King, a 10-day Bible lecture series from the 12th to 22nd of October